Well, just a quiet Sunday evening here. Looks like Matthew is finally out of the picture, and here in Texas, got a half moon here hanging out overhead, poking in behind a little bit of straticue and altitude. Very picturesque there, and it's definitely a cool evening down in the lower 60s here in our part of Texas. We'll take a look at the surface map here, and there you can see the drier air. Got 40s dew points, and that's because we've had a push of drier air from the Great Lakes region pushing into this part of Texas. But some of it is recirculating to the west and causing some upslope flow. So there it is right there. Upslope conditions, just a little bit though, and then we start getting into a very deep southerly flow in the Texas Panhandle and adjoining areas of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado. Looks like some little bits of the monsoon are still going on there in New Mexico. So let's take a look at the big picture. I just sat down after doing some renovations, and I've barely looked at the weather. So this is what we do. We do kind of a top-down approach when we're not very familiar with what's been happening. So the big picture is large anticyclone across the eastern U.S. and a cyclone across the Rockies into the higher plains, and then we get back into kind of an anticyclonic pattern out on the west coast. So it's almost certain that this is frontal. This down here I'm not totally sure. That could be some lee side troughing. We'll have to take a look at the maps there, but we're definitely going to find a high pressure area around the Great Lakes region, possibly all the way down into Kentucky in the form of a ridge. And it looks like Matthew there just kind of out of the picture. We can see some northerly flow out there in the New York City area. Some of that is due to the anticyclone blowing southward, and some of it is due to inflow into the remains of Matthew, which is located kind of in this region, but we don't really have any data there. And you can see the winds have subsided, just a few gusts to 26 there along the outer banks of North Carolina, and that's about it for winds. Well, got a couple gusts up to 48 up here. That could be post-frontal air off the coast, right there around Martha's Vineyard to Block Island. So let's check out the main maps. If I can find it. There we go. Yeah, let's check out Hurricane Matthew here, just off the coast of North Carolina. And it is a transitioning storm into kind of a baroclinic structure, still strong winds near the center, but it has filled quite a bit to 988 millibars. So how have the models handled that? This is yesterday's models about 24 hours ago, and the center of the storm right now is about roughly here. So the leftward set of models have actually been the most accurate. So we're probably talking the GFS, maybe the Canadian model, and possibly the UK Met model. And those, over the past couple of days, we know that those have been doing pretty well. So those are up there. And the ones that have not been doing so good are the no gaps, the Navy's model, the NAM, which is not optimized for tropical storms, and looks like the GFDL has kind of wandered a little bit to the right. Yeah, it sure has. So that's kind of a verification on how the models have been doing with Matthew. Okay, anything else we want to cover? It's kind of quiet again in the U.S. We'll take a look out west very quickly. This looks kind of like intermountain air, very mild, maybe a little bit warm. So this is probably a little bit of a warm air mass through here. And even up in Montana, a few 70s. So you see that right there. But there's another round of cold air making its way southward. There's the leading edge right there, going into Montana and North Dakota. And behind that, we start getting into some 50s, 40s, 30s, and even 20s as you go further north. But ahead of that front, you can see a little bit of downslope flow right here. So let me draw that front again. And the downslope flow is located right here. I don't know if how many of you are familiar with that day in history. I can't remember what year that was. It might have been the 1930s when it dropped almost 100 degrees in South Dakota. That was due to a setup like this. There was a front approaching western South Dakota. They had some really good downslope flow ahead of the front. Then the front came through and brought in some Arctic air into that region. So downslope flow can be responsible for some very strong temperature swings. And then further in the northwest, looks like some frontal precipitation in that area. Post-frontal precip. Temperatures nice and cool there at Portland, 56. So it has cooled down quite a bit. And ahead of that, in the higher deserts of Oregon, these 70s are going to be kind of on the warm side. We would expect them to be a lot cooler this time of year, like 50s and 60s. Okay, so that is the big picture, and let's not look at Sony Vegas. Let's look at the maps. There we go. So our forecast, GFS forecast, running ahead the next week. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so starting out, you can see this frontal system kind of set up in the northwest. There's the warm front, big high pressure area over the Great Lakes, extending down into the Ozarks in the form of a ridge, and there's Matthew. So running that forward into the work week. Frontal system up north, moves eastward, and then we get a bit of a high pressure area building into the Central Plains. So this is going to be about Wednesday morning right here. There's the leading edge of that frontal system being driven by a 1030 millibar high over southeastern Montana. Big high over the Canadian Maritimes, forming a ridge all the way down the Appalachians. And that's going to kick Matthew eastward. Going to get a bit of a cold push into the Atlantic coast and recirculate some moist air back up into Texas. So a little bit of a warm-up for Texas around midweek. Then we approach the weekend. The front makes it southward. Probably some chances of precipitation in Texas and Oklahoma by about Thursday night. I don't know. We shall see. It may be kind of too dry for that, but that pushes through, and then by the weekend, looks like still high pressure out east. Pretty dry over across most of the country except the northwest U.S. And let's see here. Run that forward. Trying to get the interface to respond. There we go. Looks like things become active out west. Bit of a northwesterly flow. Post-frontal air pushing into the west coast. Very deep southerly flow across the plains. So it looks kind of like a stagnant pattern the next 7 days, really. And then towards the very end, we were looking for a very strong polar push. Do we have that this time? No, looks like the models have flip-flopped. And I have pointed out in the past the GFS does have a cold bias, and we've seen it again here. So it looks like it's kind of wavering, maybe breaking the high through a little bit later. So it's kind of backed off from that, so maybe... This map here kind of has a little bit of a cold look to it. This is kind of like a high pressure area covering east-west across much of the country. In the wintertime, this would probably be associated with a lot of overrunning through here. And even this time of year, yeah, that might be going on too. See, that's a bit of easterly flow. That's upslope flow. So that's going to be probably a cloudy period with some rain in Texas on Friday, October 21st. So that's going to be almost 2 weeks from now. So we'll see how that pans out. 288 hours, man, that's pretty far in the future. So that could really change quite a bit. And I think that's about all I have. Looking at this little area of cyclogenesis right here. Something to watch. October 22nd, we'll see what the models tomorrow do with that. Looks almost like a bit of maybe an easterly wave. It's hard to tell. anyway, we'll check it out. We'll check it out tomorrow. That's pretty far in the future. So, guys, I think that's about it. That's it for the Sunday night update. Let's see. Nothing really. Oh, yeah, presidential debate. Sorry, I hope it didn't cause you all to miss that. I'll probably check that out myself. Anyway, I'll go ahead and let you guys go, and we'll see you at the same time tomorrow, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. Thanks for watching.